A judge's son accidentally killed someone in a hit and run. He assumed his father would pull strings to get him out of trouble, so he fled the scene without a second thought. To his shock, when his father found out, he immediately prepared to take him to turn himself in. After all, his father was a judge who believed in justice, and in Korea, vehicular manslaughter typically meant just a few years behind bars. But when they arrived at the police station, Ho Young couldn't bring himself to get out of the car. Left with no choice, Song went in alone to confess on his son's behalf. The moment he stepped inside, he noticed the station was in complete chaos. Before he could ask what was happening, he saw his son's hit-and-run case playing on the lobby TV. Every officer was scrambling to track down the driver. It turned out the victim wasn't just anyone. He was the son of Kim, Korea's most powerful chaebol. Kim wasn't just a business tycoon, he was also an underground crime boss. 3 years ago, he'd been locked up for violent bid rigging, but Song knew all too well that if Kim wanted out, it would be child's play. Once Kim learned about his son's death, he'd make sure the driver suffered a fate worse than death. The more Song thought about it, the more terrified he became. He rushed back to the car and sped home with his son. Once there, he immediately put on gloves and meticulously wiped every trace of blood from the vehicle. Then he threw his son's blood-stained clothes into a garbage truck. Only after watching them get shredded did he finally breathe easier. Meanwhile, the prison warden cautiously approached Kim to break the news about his son. Kim flew into a rage and immediately pulled strings to secure his release. Standing over his son's cold body, Kim was consumed by grief. But what truly pushed him over the edge was when the doctor told him that if his son had arrived just a few minutes earlier, he might have survived. Hearing this, Kim swore he'd make the killer pay. Though Song had destroyed most of the evidence, he was still on edge. The car was still sitting in his garage. That night, he arranged to meet an old friend. Putting on a grieving act, he said it was his wife's death anniversary. Ever since she'd passed, his son would have asthma attacks whenever he drove her car. For his son's safety, he wanted to quietly get rid of it. His friend agreed to help and immediately enlisted a butcher who dealt in pork. The next day, the butcher showed up in disguise and quietly drove the car away. Watching it disappear, Song finally felt he could relax. At the same time, Kim obtained the emergency call recording from the police. He listened to it over and over, realizing the caller wasn't his son. It was likely the driver. Though they hadn't said a word, their breathing sounded like someone with asthma. This small detail became the crucial lead in his hunt for the killer.